Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. I come to you this morning from my office, which is the cab of my pickup truck. As a carpenter, uh, the pickup truck has become office truly over these years. My truck is a 10-year-old truck with 270,000 some odd miles on it. And this is, in fact, the nicest and newest truck I've ever had. I've never had a brand new car in my life. Um, and the truck I was in before this one was 24-year-old truck, 25-year-old truck with over 300,000 miles on it. And yeah, that's been my story. So that's what I want to talk about this morning. Going to try to be brief. Um, Spoke to you the other day about complex trauma and, working through that, how as a young man, you can come up in a broken home and you can have complex trauma and be chasing after the wind when really the storm is inside of you. And it doesn't matter how much you do out here in the exterior world, the real storm, the problem, the chaos is inside of you. I believe that's true for those of us who have complex trauma. You need to look into that. But this morning, I want to talk about the other part of your life, which is the external part of your life and the physical, world. Um, Maybe you're listening to me this morning and you have had a rough childhood and a rough start in life. Maybe you didn't have a real good family with a lot of money and a stable grounding, and you know some folks come up and they're blessed. They come up in stable homes where the parents have some money and good careers, and the parents, actually parent their children and teach them well, and they grow up to live great lives. They go to college, they get degrees, they learn to invest their money young, and they do well in life, and that's the goal. That's how what I would have wished and hoped and prayed for everybody watching me, but uh, unfortunately, not everybody gets those cards, that hand of cards dealt to them. So for those of us who didn't, and who uh, came up without much and started your life without much in terms of money or knowledge, and you're fighting at the system chasing the wind, I want to talk about that. So, um, I grew up here in the Carolinas in the shadow of an abandoned textile mill. And, the decaying textile buildings all around me. And I remember asking my parents young, what happened? Why are those old buildings just sitting there? And they're like, yeah, they went overseas to China and shut those buildings down. And, as a kid, I didn't understand what that meant. And all my life, I've been, from my area. I realize that this video may go in other countries across the world. I am an American. My bias and my view is American, so I hope this crosses over and translates. If not, then bear with me. But either way, for my area, I come up poor. Now I realize that a poor person in America is really a rich person in many parts of the world. So I don't say this with any disrespect to people in other countries who have had it harder than I ever have. So I'm a blessed man, and I'm not overlooking the fact that I have a lot more than a lot of people have, and I'm thankful to God for what we have. But for our area, I've come up poor, and wasn't given much as far as education on how the real world works. Maybe they taught some of that in school, but if you're as I'm learning with complex trauma, if you're going through complex trauma and you're dealing with the pain and the issues associated with that, you're not really paying attention. Even if you're going to school and you're maybe learning things, things are being taught in the classroom, you're not really processing it or taking it in because you're in trauma mode. You're so fixated on surviving your current situation. So I don't know whether it wasn't taught when I was in school or whether I was so traumatized that I wasn't paying attention and I just didn't get the memo. But it didn't seem like they taught us anything about how the real world works and how money works and how life works. So here's from my eyes how it looked, and maybe you can relate. All of my life, it seemed like I've been broke and just trying to get ahead, trying to get caught up, trying to, save some money so that I could buy a house or a nice truck or, have a savings account to be able to fund vacations and a lifestyle and, have a wife and kids and, be able to pay for vacations and, all the things that you need to accompany a full, nice life. Um, and so all my life from young, like, I never had any money. And I didn't get a college degree. You know, I worked with my hands as a carpenter. My dad did, and so I'm a laborer, I'm a common laborer, um, carpenter. And all I knew is that there never was enough money. I couldn't get enough money fast enough, and it still very much feels that way. And I just want to talk about that to you this morning because for years and years I wondered why everything I made it seemed like it wasn't enough. It was never enough money. It didn't matter how many jobs I worked, how much money I made. It was never enough, and still feels that way. So, and I remember as a young man wondering why is it, why can't I ever get ahead? Why can't I save enough money? And, by God's grace, we now have all these nice technologies. I forget the verse in Daniel, but there's a verse in Daniel in the Bible that says, and knowledge will increase, and the end will come like a flood. And in these days, my lifetime, the knowledge has come like a flood because I remember the time before cell phones. I remember the time before computers. I still grew up without a computer. I didn't have a cell phone until I was in my early 20s. Anyway, thank God for them now. Cell phones, YouTube. I love YouTube because thanks to YouTube, you can learn anything and everything on demand. And so in the last few years, I have embarked upon, I'm just a lifelong learner. I love learning, but I've learned a lot about finance and money and the way that the money and the economy and the world works. I've learned what I've wondered all these years, and now I just want to briefly try to open your eyes to this. I will in no way be able to exhaust the topic or fully educate you on it in one video. I'm already 8 minutes in and I haven't got there yet, but I just want to open your eyes to what's going on because you're not crazy. When you feel like you're working 2 and 3 jobs and killing yourself and it's not enough money to buy a nice home or buy a nice truck, you're not crazy and you're not lazy. And that one time you went and ate avocado toast, that's not the reason why you don't have anything. Older folks, older generations pick on the younger generations and say, well, you blow it all on avocado toast and lattes and video games. When actually that's not the case. The stage is set against us, and I want to try to explain that. So Ray Dalio does work on historical cycles. You can get on YouTube, type in Ray Dalio cycles, and you'll find nice videos about that. But here's what's going on. So for my lifetime, I'm 40 years old now. I'm a millennial. America has been our dollar, the American dollar, has been the world reserve currency. All other dollars are pegged to the US dollar. The US dollar is supposed to be pegged to gold, or it used to be. And that is the cycle we're currently in. The cycle in which the American dollar is the world reserve currency and America is deemed the world superpower. That has been this way since World War II and the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1942 or 43. So there are these cycles, like roughly 80-year cycles. And what happens is there's this cycle. A world war breaks out, and I'll finish up why in a minute. But a world war breaks out. When the war is settled, whoever emerges victorious from the war, their money becomes the new world reserve currency, and everything is pegged to them as the victor nation and the deemed to be the most stable one. And the cycle begins there. You can also look. Neil Howe did a book called The Fourth Turning. I encourage you look that up on YouTube. A summary of the fourth turning. It also speaks to this. But okay, so you got a new monetary system. The war's over. You have a new victor, a new money issued to this country. Well, the country that holds the reserve currency, for us it's the dollar today, that country has to supply the world with dollars, with their currency. So by nature, implicit in this system, this credit system, we have to print money to supply the world. There has to always, as population increases, there's more and more people, more and more goods and services that dollars represent. We always have to be printing money. And the government, our politicians, get in there and they do spending. They pass bills for spending measures, and those in Congress who pass the spending measures are not themselves directly accountable to balance the budget. And so the government, with the reserve currency, makes their currency available to the rest of the world and to the residents of their own country. And money is printed literally in physical dollars by printer machines, but money is also printed by the creation of it out of nothing by the press of a button on a computer. When you go to the bank and get a mortgage to buy your first house, they create $300,000 out of nowhere when they create a loan for you. Now you're going to pay that back in real dollars, but they create that money out of nowhere. So in various means, by the central bank, by standard local banks, by many different ways, money is printed or brought into existence. More dollars, more dollars. Well, that's exactly, there's like a 80-year cycle. And it starts out in the beginning of the cycle when you got a fresh new victor nation with a fresh new reserve currency. It's not yet overinflated, and the dollar's buying power is strong. And the first generation or two after the reset of the cycle, they do really well. That is the high and the awakening periods of the fourth turning, okay? And that would be in America, the 50s and the 60s were those good years when people were prosperous and one man could work one job and feed himself, his wife, his kids. He could put his kids through college. They could have 1 or 2 family vacations a year on one man's salary. He could work one job and raise his whole family because the dollar was still that strong. In fact, it was still paid to gold. So let's talk about America. Before 1913, there was no central bank in America, no Federal Reserve Bank. In 1913, they brought that about. There's a book about that called The Creature from Jekyll Island. You can look up about that and read that or watch YouTube on that. And they began, controlling the money through the central bank there in 1913. And so, with World War II, the British pound sterling was the world reserve currency. It lost its power and it became the U.S. dollar after World War II, the world reserve currency. And so in the 50s and 60s, everything was like rolling good and strong here in America, and the dollar was strong and it was pegged to gold. That was the agreement coming out of World War II. The idea being there was gold representing every physical dollar in presence, pegged at a certain price. Well, in 1960s and 70s, the other countries of the world began to realize America was spending like crazy, and they began to think to themselves, yeah, they're printing too much money, and they can't have all the gold to represent all that money they're spending. And so other countries like France started wanting their gold back from America. We began to hold all the gold for the world, as a safe storehouse coming out of World War II. Well, the other countries began to realize that we were spending too much, printing too much money, and they started wanting their gold back. Well, in 1971, Nixon went up there and temporarily suspended the backing of the U.S. dollar by gold. And from there, from 1971 forward, the U.S. dollar became what's known as a fiat currency. Fiat means by decree. It means it's not backed by anything. The U.S. dollar is not backed by gold. It's only backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. Okay, so when you hold a dollar in your hands, it's not really worth anything. It's just a debt certificate that America owes you the credit for that dollar. So let me speed this up. The point is, all your life, if you've been feeling poor and getting poorer and working yourself to the bone and don't understand why you're getting poor, the reason is they're printing money all the time. There's a 4-year business cycle. The countries, each country holds sovereign debt. America being one of those. We have U.S. sovereign debt. We have loans to other countries. You can look at the deficit. We're like $36 trillion in debt to other countries. Well, those are on short-term loans that come due every 4 years or so, and they have to be paid and then another loan issued. And every time that cycle comes around, they don't have the money. So they had to print more money to pay off the loans so that they can issue more loans. And so if nothing else, every 4 years when the sovereign debt comes around to be serviced, they're printing money. And we're in that part of the cycle now here in 2025. They're about to turn the money printers on hot and heavy here in the tail end of the year. And of course, there's the everyday creating of money with people going to the banks and issuing mortgages and taking out auto loans. They create that money out of nowhere. So the point is, money is being printed all the time, the US dollar. And what happens when you print more money is you devalue the purchasing power of all the existing dollars. So if, for example, if there's only $10 trillion, or let's say $15 trillion is existent worldwide, okay? And then we turn the money printers on and we print another $8 trillion and dump that into the supply of dollars. We've increased the supply of dollars from 15 trillion total to 23 trillion total. We've just increased the money supply by 35 or 40%. What we did is we devalued the purchasing power of all the existing dollars by 35 or 40%. That's exactly what they did through the COVID crisis here in America. They printed some $8 trillion to hand out stimulus checks and pay for the COVID jabs. And there you go. Within a year's time, 2021, 2022, we saw real estate prices almost double in price. They went up 40%. So did the price of cars and trucks and rent. And that, now we're getting to the core of the point that I'm trying to get to you. If you've been getting poorer all your life and you had no financial education, this is exactly why you're feeling, and your feelings are true, and this is what's happening. It's called inflation. It's a hidden tax called inflation. And lots of people think they understand what inflation is. They understand that a loaf of bread costs more this year than last year, for example, but they don't really understand all that's behind inflation, and it's by design. It's not explained to you on purpose, because if people fully understood it, and more and more people are now understanding it, they would riot. People wouldn't stand for it. But anyway, what it is you're getting poorer all the time because more and more money is being printed, and your purchasing power of your life savings is being depleted every time they print more money. So let's say you save up $10,000 cash and stick it in your mattress. Next year, the purchasing power is less and less every year, less and less purchasing power. They do this CPI rate of inflation. These fake numbers that they give out, and they say, oh, inflation is 2 to 3% a year, or whatever, if you go work a job somewhere, they're going to give you a little paltry, if you're lucky, they're going to give you a little paltry 2%, 3% a year cost of living raise. The true cost of living or inflation is more like 8 or 10%. Some years 12 and 20% inflation. During the COVID years, it was over 20% there for a while. And on a normal basis, it's anywhere from 7 to 12% a year. And that is directly exactly the amount of money being printed and dumped into the supply of money. That's where it really comes from. It's not all this other jazz and smoke and mirrors that they try to tell you it is. They're printing money and you're getting poorer by the day. And here's the trick to the situation. You've heard the saying, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. What's actually happening there is those who understand this game and those who don't. That's the divide. The game is this: every reserve currency nation has to be printing money. By default, the system, they have to print money, okay? And the politicians are going to see to it with their reckless spending. As the printing occurs, the value, the purchasing power of the dollars is debased over time. So dollars buy less and less. That $10,000 you stick in your mattress today, in 10 years, it'll be debased by 70% of your purchasing power or more. You've lost that purchase. You still have $10,000. It just buys 70% less than it would have bought 10 years ago. That's what's happening. So if you've been saving your money in dollars or your bank account, or maybe you don't even have any savings, you are definitely getting poorer because everything is getting more expensive. So here's the trick. Every time money's printed, assets inflate in price to offset the printing of the money. Assets are goods and services, land, real estate, Bitcoin, cars and trucks. They're not so much an asset as real estate, but they are expensive and they are durable goods. The cost of food at the restaurants and the grocery stores, you notice the price of these things always going up. It's not because they cost more. It's because the dollar is worth less. And so it takes more and more dollars to buy the same products. But because over time the dollar is weaker and weaker and weaker as they print more and more and more money. So the trick, what you have to do to actually save your hard work and save your energy over time, is you have to invest your dollars into durable assets like real estate, like Bitcoin, like gold and silver. That's the trick. You have to invest your money into assets, and then every time money is printed, your assets inflate in value according to the printing of the money. So if you have all your money put in real estate, in a house and land, and they print another $8 trillion, and the price of everything goes up by 40% again, your real estate will go up 40%. So you didn't get any poorer in the money printing. Your assets kept pace with the printing of the money, the inflation. Printing of money is inflation. But if you don't own real estate or Bitcoin or have any assets, you, my friend, get poorer every time the money is printed and dumped in the system. That's the trick. So yes, all of your life, that feeling you and I have been feeling about, oh man, I don't know, I'm working 16 jobs, I'm saving everything I can save, but I'm still just chasing the wind, getting behind, I can't get ahead. This is why. Nobody told you you must buy assets. And the earlier in the cycle, the 80-year cycle, that you buy the assets, the wealthier you are, because the dollars are stronger in the earlier part of the cycle, before the insanity happens. So we're in the tail end of it now. We're in the last of the 80 years. In fact, according to the fourth turning theory by Neil Howe and Strauss, I think it's Strauss, within the next 10 to 15 years, we could be looking at a whole other world war and reset, and converting over to another reserve currency for the world, because the cycle is nearing its end, and they've already printed so many American dollars, that if you look at the purchasing power of today's dollar versus an 1860 dollar, we're down like 98% in purchasing power. Like, they've already printed 98% of the purchasing power out of the dollar. We're in the far end of the cycle. And so over time, as the cycle goes, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because the rich are the ones who understand what I just told you, and they act on it early in the cycle and or early in your lifetime. So you and I can't help the part of the cycle that we're in. We'll talk more about that and what's coming, and maybe in later videos. But what you can help is in your own lifetime. So if you're a young man and you're watching me today, I want to give you something that's going to really help you if you will hear me. And if you've listened this far, we're 25 minutes in. I guess you're going to hear me if you've listened this far. The best thing you can do as a young man is go to work hard. Yes, you probably will have to work at least 2 jobs because of the way this has all been so extrapolated now. I mean, we're so far in the cycle. You see it all the time everywhere. Gen Z, I'm a millennial, millennials, Gen Z, and the one behind them, man, we're having it rough. Everything is way, way too expensive because your dollars are way, way too weak. You can look back at the charts. There's a website called WTF Happened in 1971. You can go back to that point where Nixon broke the dollar away from the gold standard, and you can see the chart. The cost of wages, real wages, is basically flat, and the cost of goods and services is climbing, assets. And so the best thing you can do is young, start saving your money and investing in assets. Real estate. Now, real estate is expensive. You got to have so much of a down payment. You got to meet all these criteria before the bank will click the button and print you some money and give you a mortgage. You got to pacify the banks. And for a lot of people my age and younger, like, they're already admitting the fact, I'll probably never have a house, sadly, because of all this. They'll never have a house, they don't believe. So this is why I like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you can download the Coinbase app on your phone or the River app or whatever you use, and you can buy Bitcoin $10 at a time. It is an asset. It's better than real estate. It's probably the best asset in the world. Okay, we'll talk more about that later. Bitcoin is probably the wisest thing you can buy. And you can buy it in fractional amounts. Like, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy $10 at a time. The smaller units are called Satoshis. And you can buy your Bitcoin and you can hold it in personal custody on a hardware wallet. And it will appreciate with the printing of money. So when you work and you save $20 at the end of the week on Friday, you put $20 into buy $20 of Bitcoin and save it. Your money will keep its purchasing power. In fact, every time they print more money, your Bitcoin becomes worth more money, just like real estate. So this is the trick. You have to start early and young in your life and work hard, like I have and like you have. And you must invest. This is the trick. You must invest your money into assets, or you're going to be left behind. And I'm 40 years old, and I have basically just learned this in the last year or so of my life. Thank God for YouTube, again, and the technology and the people on here who I've been able to listen to and learn about these things. So the video is getting long. We're at 29 minutes now, and I intend to keep these videos short, but I guess I got to speed up how fast I talk. But if you're a young man today and you're trying to get your life together, this piece here is crucial. The money piece, the money part. If you want to get ahead, actually start getting ahead in life, you need to begin buying assets. I recommend Bitcoin. And just buy it and hold it, and do not sell it. You don't want. That's the other part of that trick. The part B is you don't sell your assets. You buy them and you never sell them. You later can borrow money against them, take loans out against your real estate or your Bitcoin, and you don't pay taxes on debt. That's the third part of the trick that the rich use to never pay taxes. The rich, the super wealthy, they never show an earned income. They just own a bunch of assets like their company, like Tesla. And Elon just borrows debt against his stock of Tesla shares. He never shows an income because a loan is debt, it's not taxed. And you just get another year, another loan every year to pay off last year's loan and have money left over to live on this year. And you never pay income taxes because you never got an income. You just borrowed against your assets, and you use those tax savings to buy more assets and get richer. This is how the rich get rich and the poor get poor. The poor get poor by doing like I've done for 25 years of my adult life. Work like a dog with your hands and don't understand what I just told you, and try to save your money in cash or dollars or whatever your currency is. Just, it's a sinking ship. To try to save your money in dollars is a sinking ship, and you're getting poorer every day. Um, if you're not in America, I'm sure this applies to your country also. I'm sure your country is debasing your currency by printing money. So I recommend to you, whatever country you're in worldwide, to buy Bitcoin and hold it. Keep it in personal custody. And this will not make you rich overnight. Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme. It's not a get rich overnight scheme. It's a long-term get rich scheme. It's not a scheme. It's a plan. If you begin to buy what you can, 10, 20, 30, $40 a week of Bitcoin, and just hold it, and just buy as much as you can, as fast as you can, as hard as you can, and you do that for 10 years and you hold it and you don't spend it, and you wake up and look up in 10 years, you're going to be in a whole different ballpark. You're going to be in a better place. You will have some wealth for the first time in your life, and you'll understand everything I'm telling you. So, friends, I hope this helps you out. Just sharing a little bit of what I've been learning with you. I'm sorry it takes me so long to get it across. I'm working on getting faster. I pray God will be good to you today. I hope we all have a great day in the Lord. I hope that you have learned something here that'll help you. Putting this physical part of your life in order, along with working on the inside part of your life that we spoke about the other day. If you put those two things together, and hopefully you know Jesus Christ and you're following him, and he is the great physician and the great healer, and he really, that's where the healing begins. If you'll just come to Jesus, the healing will begin. He'll begin to open your eyes to all these things and many more. You couple these things all together, your life will start healing, and you'll begin getting a lot better, and you'll start getting some traction in life. It won't be easy. It's still not easy. I'm 40 years old, and I'm doing everything I've told you, and it's still not easy. Like I told you, I'm sitting in my 10-year-old truck with over 250,000 miles on it, and it's the nicest truck I ever had. But it's getting better. The longer I do the right things, the better and easier it gets. So I hope that my goal is, maybe you're 18 years old or 16 years old or 20 years old and you're watching me this morning. And if you can put these things into practice now, by the time you're my age, you'll be a lot better off than me, physically speaking, financially speaking, okay? So God bless you and keep you. Thank you for your time and watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.